Well, welcome back to the studio this week, and I hope that you've been having fun with all of the ideas that I've had thus far. Getting into a sketchbook habit and mixing some paints and all of the fun things. This month in February is going to be February faces, so we'll be focusing on portraits. Maybe not full face, or maybe more of a narrative type art in that there's just some people in the painting. So let's get to the painting this week. All right, welcome back to the studio. And this week, actually this whole month of February, we're going to be focusing on portraits and February faces. So I put together a simple portrait palette, and I did a warm yellow. So I did an ochre, a blue, which I used cobalt blue, red. This is a warm red, a reddy orange, vermilion, I think, or it could be permanent, but I think it's vermilion. I did end up having pink, a magenta, that wasn't originally on my palette, and a Payne's gray. I don't remember how this ended up on my palette, but I did end up using it too because it was there. This is my winter palette, which you'll see here. We're going to do some swatching and talking about skin tones first, because I think that a lot of people have trouble with their skin tones. So let's see. Let's get the paints wet, wake them up a little bit. If you hear a noise, it's the studio dog. He's ready to go and play. All right. So for basic skin tone, I like to use my yellow, of course. It's pretty light. Let's get some good color here that maybe you can see. Can you see that? Hopefully you can see that. And then a red. So we're basically making a basic orange. And then, depending on obviously the skin tone, hopefully you can see that. I don't really water it down. I like to do a wash first. This was done with a wash. I drew this. I'll get into the step-by-step video, but I drew it with my magenta watercolor pencil, which I have really enjoyed using that as my drawing of choice, because, you know, she's a light skin tone to begin with. So if that pink mixes in, it actually works, because I like to use pink up here in the eyebrows and in the corners, the deep corners of the eyes next to the nose. So there we go. There's a good basic skin tone. Can you see that with the yellow and the red? And I like to use a orange, a warm red that has a orangey red base, not like a magenta red, or maybe a rose red might work. I haven't used that. But I like vermilion. That's kind of an orangey red. So that really works nice as a skin tone. And then if you get into the shadow areas, I add a tiny bit of blue. Of course, that's a lot of blue. you go. That's a good shadow color, the second one right here, where it's just a tiny bit darker. Of course, this is fine if it's a deeper shadow where it's got a little bit of greeny to it. You'll notice that the skin has a little bit of green tones when it's into the shadows. So that's fine. That was just a little bit darker than I wanted to go. But so hopefully you keep these simple tips in mind when you're doing your portraits. So let's get to today's portrait, and I hope that you have fun. I will include a traceable in the description, so hopefully that works. This is the first time I've done that, so if there's problems, just let me know. Okay, so let's get started on the portrait. I did sketch it in already with my favorite watercolor pencils. This time I used a magenta, which I felt was perfect for portraiture because, you know, she's a light-skinned already. And going in over her face with some water, and if that pink mixes in and activates on the page, it just adds an undertone, so it's perfect actually. And that's all I'm doing right now is just wetting her face with some clean water. So hopefully you'll enjoy this series of February faces. I plan on doing 3 videos a week. Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. I'm just mixing some basic skin tone color with the yellow ochre and my red, making a nice peachy color. And it's okay that it started off a little dark, so I just went into the shadowy areas and started there. So that's okay if your mixture ends up a little bit dark. Just start in the shadowy areas and then, you know, thin it out towards the center of the face. And as you paint with it, it gets thinner and thinner. So it actually works out perfect that way. Hopefully you guys take advantage of the traceable that I have in the description. If not, you can certainly freehand this, or I really encourage you to pull out your family photos and work from those. This is what this is all about, is just getting your confidence up and create from your photos. Oh, I had some muck on my palette from another painting, and it was kind of a peachy orangey color. And I just went in again to the shadowy areas because I wasn't exactly sure of what the color was, and it works out perfect that way. The reference that I'm going by, I did a study in my sketchbook, and I like to work from my sketchbook. Go view some past videos and you can see how I use my sketchbooks. I think I'm still using that muck on my palette. And I think I'm just extending that shadow area up behind the pom-pom and on the side of her nose. Did I go in with some red? I think I'm painting in the pom-pom. Yeah. Oh, I was just using the red that I had taken earlier to making the skin tone. And I just went in really lightly. I do end up darkening that, but that was... I like to work in layers. So my first layers on my paper are just something that's close. It doesn't have to be an exact, you know, like this hair color. It's not the exact color that I'm going to keep on there. I like to paint over it, draw over it, paint over it. Because I think it kind of is a little bit greenish once I get it on there. But I think it was just a color that was pretty close on my palette already. And it's just the first layer, so it doesn't matter. And this is going to be really dark down there underneath her chin and the underside of her hair, so I think I had colored in a lot of the pink watercolor pencil, so I really was activating that with maybe some paint that was left on my paintbrush, and that was the way I was toning the paper. You know, just like you tone your canvas, I like to tone my watercolor paper. I'm working on the little puppet's ears. Oh, I had said earlier I didn't remember how I had gotten the pink on my palette. Now I remember. This little monster puppet that she had made. I wanted some really, not bright pink, but you know, I wanted some good pink color. And so I just put some on my palette that was already pre-mixed. Getting in some of that blue background. Oh yeah, I cheated again. Oh geez, I went into my winter watercolor palette. I also will put that in the description if you're interested in creating a limited winter color palette. That was fun. We did that a few weeks ago, and we painted a couple of paintings with it too. I was using that blue because it was, again, I was lazy, and it was light, so that's a sky blue, which is actually not a pure color. It's already a mixed blue. So I don't tend to use that as a staple on my palette. I did for the the winter palette. But I think that I was just doing that today, creating my go-to watercolor palette. I'm going to keep a cobalt blue because that's a good mixing blue. It's a cooler blue, so I think I'm going to have to decide what I want for something that's a little warmer. But it's good in dark. See, that's a good dark blue, so I was using that up near her face. So in a portrait, we want to keep the darks framing the face, because the face is going to be probably the lightest part, and of course the focal, of the painting. So I was putting some of those darker blues up around her face. And I added some yellow, but you'll see me add more yellow, so no worries. I think I was just playing, making sure that it didn't create muck. And it didn't. It does create some green, you know, blue and yellow make green, which was fine. I just didn't want it to be mucky and muddy. So I did some splatters and did some big splotches. There you go. I did do that trick. I don't know if you were with me on one of my last videos in trying to get bigger splatters. That's what I was playing around with too. Those bigger marks are dipping my brush in the paint and getting it good and watery, but then quickly going into my clean water and just dipping it really quick with the paint on the brush and then bringing it to the page. You get those bigger drips. If you don't do that, you tend to get a lot of those littler drips that I have. Just went in with some clean water over my sketch and activating that area with the where I had sketched in with a pencil, the watercolor pencil. That little monster's hair is pink, so whatever I could activate with just clean water ended up being perfect. I did go in with some darker paints, pink for the shadows. I really do love sketching with watercolor pencils. I do even on my acrylic canvas, you know, paintings. I love sketching on the canvas with watercolor pencils or something that's water soluble, the Stabilos and the charcoals. I just love how it all reacts with the paint and creates interesting colors or interesting marks. That is a burnt sienna. Yeah, I think it's burnt sienna on my watercolor. I keep saying watercolor, on my winter watercolor palette. We could make brown. That's just mixing your blue and yellow and red. And then of course, if you want it to be darker, you'll mix more blue. If you want it to be more warmer, you'll mix more yellow or red. Again, I was lazy and went to the brown that was already on my palette. Oh, painting in some of the shadows. I really watered it down. Of course, we don't have white in the watercolor world. Yes, I know that there are like whites that are gouache, and they're included in a lot of watercolor palettes, but technically there's no white in watercolor, so if you want to lighten a color, you just water it down and it gets lighter. Or you just leave the white of the page. I think I'm using my blue brush now, because as I go each layer, I change my brush. So I started off with a mop brush that was longer bristles, a lot softer. My mop brushes tend to be real, hair. I do know that they make some synthetics, but those brushes were given to me, so I might as well use them. I might try some of those synthetics when I need to replace them. And then I use some of my more synthetic bigger round brushes. They're just a cheap set that came with like those royal, that's what they say is royal watercolor brush. They're just those sets that you can get at like Hobby Lobby or Walmart, or the watercolor sets. That those brushes have been pretty good. So I use the bigger ones out of that, and then when I do my last layer, I get sometimes it's a smaller brush. That's my favorite one, that blue. It's a Princeton Summit. It's an 8-inch round. It's synthetic. It's a lot it's stiffer bristles. And it's got a little bit better point, and I can get in there for more detail. So that's how I use my watercolor brushes. And it looks like I'm going in now with that brush, and as I'm adding in details and shadows and stuff like that. That's the biggest size I have in that series. I also will put that in the description. On Amazon, it's a set of 4. I think I have 2 of the 4. A 6 and an 8. But that Amazon set is really good. It has the 6, the 8, and I don't remember what the other size is, but I do know that they have a smaller detail brush. So that's really good. And I love that Summit series. It's my favorite. You can see I mixed originally the skin tone, and I was like, oh, that's really dark. So I brought some of that dark into the middle and watered it down, made it lighter. Skin tones is just basic orange, yellow, and a red. Of course, you need to play around with it according to the reference photo, but that's the base. I think I was going in, I have Payne's Gray on that winter watercolor palette. I think I couldn't remember if I had Payne's Gray in my portrait palette, so I knew that was a Payne's Gray. And you can make your Payne's Gray. It's black and blue. Black with a kiss of blue is a good Payne's Gray. let me know if you want me to do some color mixing of darks. I have on my channel color mixing acrylics, pinks and greens. Those have been pretty popular. I can do some watercolor mixes if you like, and we can focus on some darks. And we don't draw every single hair, we're just painting sections of hair. And really just painting the shadows. So, hair, you negative paint? I think that's negative painting. Making a shadow color with this basic skin tone color that I had mixed. Added some extra blue, cobalt blue, and red, so make a purple. But I did keep that basic skin tone because we are painting skin, so I just kept the that as the base and made it a little bit more on the purpley side. I do like to make sure that my eyebrows and the inner corners of my subject's eyes are pink. A lot of people like to paint their eyebrows and they make that area, especially on the inside of the nose, dark. And while it may be dark, adding darker pink actually, I think, makes it look a little bit more realistic. It's not so harsh. I know eyes are so hard for a lot of people because that is the focal area. So you want to get that right. And then getting the darks in around the face. And then don't leave this line harsh. Go in with some clean water on your brush after and fade out the edge, and make it a soft edge, not a hard edge. Oh, shadowing his nose. I do go in and make these darker areas lighter with some clean water. See? So I came in with a damp brush. I put it in after I made that mark. I washed the brush in clean water, patted it on my towel next to me, and then went in and I didn't lift it all up. I just made it a lighter mark. Softening the around the eye. Oh, yep, working on her cheek. This is another shadow area. Sometimes I use the belly of the brush like that and I just kind of roll it around. That's what I was doing. gets a different mark. It's fun. I'm just going in with clean water, smoothing it all out. Making sure I keep that light on the top of her cheek, the light sitting there. Shading the side of her nose with that color. It's a kind of a taupey color that I had made. I just made mud. Oh my gosh. Sometimes you'll get some colors that you don't like, but I keep them on the palette and then I end up using them later on. It ended up being a good shadow color. And if you do make marks that you don't like, or mix a color and put it on there that you don't like, rinse your brush off in the water and make sure you have clean water on your brush, and then dab it on your towel so that you get most of the water out of the bristles, but it's just damp, and then you can go in and lift that color up or that mark up. All right, we're just gonna touch up a few things here. So we're almost done. Stick around, but you guys stay messy, playful, and wild, and I'll see you next time in the studio.